Today's topic of discussion is the introduction of parasitology and all about parasites. We will see what are parasite and what is their study called, and in which department, in which branch of biology we deal with parasites, and what are their significances, importance, and their complications, their treatments, and all that. Anything that comes in the introduction of parasites will be discussed today. Moreover, I want to say that this is the topic that usually that is usually a part of so many different departments, including medical laboratory technology, MLT. So let's move forward. Here we have the definition of parasitology. It is the branch of biology which deals with the study of parasites. So first have a look. It says the word parasitology has two different words. One is parasito and the other one is logi. You remember that when we say logi, it means there is some kind of study of something, right? And the word that comes before logi is the word that is usually studied. So parasitology means the study of parasites. Logi means study and parasito means parasites. It is defined as the branch of biology which deals with the study of parasites. So parasites की study is called parasitology. Medical parasitology, it is the study of parasites that infect and cause disease in human beings. What do you mean by medical parasitology? Medical parasitology means the any kind of parasite that are usually discussed in term of humans, that infect humans. So those parasites come, their study come in the branch of medical parasitology. Parasite, what is a parasite? We have already discussed there is something called parasite. So what is the parasite? Parasite is something, an organism that depends on another organism for its survival. Okay, there is one thing that you need to consider here is parasite is an organism. It means it is something living, and another organism. Parasite lives on something, another living organism for its survival. So what is the reason for its dependence? It's a survival. There's another definition. A living organism which receives nourishment and shelter from another organism where it lives. For example, we have Entamoeba histolytica. So, Entamoeba histolytica is the example of. Okay, naming of parasite किस तरह से what is the best way of naming parasites. It comprises of two names. One is genus and the other one is species. Always the name of the parasite would always be in two different words. One word, and the first word would be from its genus, that will always start with uppercase letters, capital letter, and the other one, the preceding one, will be the species name, and it will always start with lowercase letter. So example is Entamoeba histolytica. You can clearly see that Entamoeba is written, is started with capital E, and histolytica is started with smaller h. Okay, there is one more, another important thing. If a parasite causes a disease, any disease that is caused by a parasite, it is called as parasitosis or parasitasis. Now, this is something new. Listen carefully. Parasitosis and parasitasis. It means the name of parasite would be here, and at the end, we'll add osis. Similarly, there would be some conditions or some diseases caused by parasites where the name of the parasite would be written as it is, and aces will be added in the end. So aces and oses, these are the words that you need to remember. For example, Giardia lamblia causes giardiasis in human. You can see Giardia lamblia is the name of the parasite. Giardiasis is the disease. Giardia is the parasite, and aces is the last name that we have to add at the end of every disease that is caused by parasite. It is the same as its parasitasis. You can see parasitasis, the name of the parasite, and then it is followed by Aces. So it's GRDS, right? Host, any organism which harbors the parasite. Host, what is host? What is the definition of host? Host is an organism, a living thing which harbors the parasite. It could be human or any other living organism which harbors the parasite, which helps the parasite to live within it, right? Which provides everything to the parasite for its survival. So there are more than two types of parasites. We will study three different types of parasites here. One is called host, definitive host. Definitive means something final, something confirmed. So definitive host is the host that is actually necessary, important, or crucial for the survival of parasite. Let's read the definition. Either harbors the adult stage of parasite, or where the parasite utilizes its sexual method of reproduction. So reproduction or the adult stage, both sounds similar. So any host that harbors the adult stage of parasite or that helps the parasite to utilize its method of reproduction is called definitive host. Okay, so there is an intermediate host. Intermediate host means something in between that is not actually final, but that is in between, that is required, but it's not the final one, right? So intermediate host harbors the larval stage of parasite. Larval stage of parasite, it means growth phase. In some cases, larval development is completed in two different intermediate hosts referred as first and second intermediate host. So intermediate host could be one or two or more than two. Parasitic host. Now there is another definition: a host where the parasite remains visible. A host where parasite remains viable through without further development. Parasite remains viable. It means parasite doesn't die, or it is not killed without further development, but its further development is restricted. So a paratenic host is a host that is not essential for parasitic growth. Parasite doesn't grow in the paratenic host or life cycle, but serves as the transport to the parasite to a final definitive host. So paratenic host could be a host that only serves as a transport to the parasite, right? It does not help in the growth of parasite, but it does transport the parasite to its definitive host. There's classification of parasite. Will study the parasite based on the classification of its location. Some will be in the body and some would be out of the body of their host, habitat, and their duration, right? There are different kinds of classification in which you can classify the parasite. So we'll have based on its location, we have two different names: ectoparasites, and then we have endoparasite. As the name indicate, ecto means outside of the body and endo means inside of the body. Ectoparasite, the parasite that lives outside of the body. Ecto, that lives outside of the body, that lives outside on the host body, maybe on the surface. Example include in arthropods. All the arthropods are considered as ectoparasite. Okay, there's an example I can give you. The parasite that lives outside the host body. So you guys know about lice, the head lice that lives on the head of the human, in the hair, in the scalp. It is an example of ectoparasite. It depends, it is a living organism and it depends on the host, on human body for its survival, its growth, its nourishment, and it lives outside the body, so it is an ectoparasite. However, endoparasite, a parasite that lives inside the host body, right? Inside the host body. Example include protozoa and helminths. So in simple words, we can say all the worms that live within our body. It could be earthworm, yeah, or endoparasite. Classification on their habitat. Habitat means their place of living. So there is something called obligate. Obligate, what does obligate mean? Something that is a restriction, that is a must. An obligate parasite or holoparasite is a parasitic organism that cannot complete its life cycle without exploiting a suitable host. So obligate parasite means any parasite that actually requires, that always requires a parasite, a host for its growth. In an obligate parasite, if an obligate parasite fails to find a suitable host, it will fail to reproduce. So this is the parasite. Obligate parasite means a parasite that always require a host for its growth. If it doesn't find a host, it means it will not grow, it will fail to reproduce, right? Next, we have facultative parasite. Facultative parasite is an organism that may resort to parasitic activity that does not absolutely rely on any host for completion of its life cycle. Facultative means something that okay, if the parasite will get the host, it will be good, and if it doesn't, there will not an, any issue. So facultative parasite means any parasite, an organism that does not strictly require a host. Okay, so if it finds a host, it's okay, and if it doesn't, it's okay as well. It completes its life cycle without or within the host. Accidental host, also known as incidental host, so it means it is something that is not that was not in the pit. These parasites attack or establish a relationship with an unusual host. There are some times when parasite enters some unusual host and it lives there, but it doesn't it was not a part of its life cycle, but lives there for a shorter period of time. It is called accidental host or incidental host. It is not a normal host, it is unnatural. Parasite usually doesn't live in that host, right? So next we do have aberrant host. Parasite may enter aberrant host in whom conditions are not adequate for their survival, for the development or sexual maturity. So aberrant host is something that uh, a parasite enters in conditions that are not adequate. So we can say that parasite enters in the aberrant host when there are not adequate conditions. You know, when there are harsh environment where parasite will die if it doesn't enter in a suitable host. So parasite finds an aberrant host. Aberrant host will not help in the nourishment, in the growth, in the reproduction of the parasite, but yeah, it will help in the survival of the parasite. Okay, so next we do have the based on its duration. There are some parasites that temporarily lives in their host, and there are some which lives permanent in their host. Let's see. Temporary parasites are organisms whose parasitic mode of life is limited to a few or even one stage of development. So temporary parasite means mode of life is limited to a few or even one stage of development. Their development is only limited to one stage or only a few stages, a very shorter lifespan. An example of this is the larval stage of harvest mites. So mites do have very shorter lifespan. So this parasite would be called as temporary parasite. However, their adult stage is not parasitic, right? Temporary permanent parasite, when a parasite is permanent, you know, there is an organism and it lives in the host, and throughout its life it acts as a parasite, would be called as permanent parasite. Several generations occur on the host of the infested individual. For example, there is, as I mentioned, head lice in the prior discussion. Head lice is a permanent host. It lives in the scalp of its host throughout their life, and their generations come and they grow, and their generation comes as well. So it is the permanent host, including head lice, right? Next, host parasite relationship. There are different types of relationship between host and parasite. This relationship is called symbiosis. It is defined as any type of close and long-term biological interaction between two different biological organisms. If two different biological organisms, two different living organisms, maybe a host and a parasite lives in the same organism, this relationship would be called as symbiosis. There are three different forms of types of kinds of symbiosis: mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Mutualism, as the word indicates, mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. We'll read in the detail what is meant by mutualism. You can see the picture over here. There is a flower and there is a fly that is over there, and it is getting the nectar from the flower. So mutualism, it is a type of relationship where both the partners get the benefit. Okay, so there's a mistake in the spelling. Now let's ignore. It is the type of relationship where both the partners get the benefit, right? So mutualism is the type of symbiosis in which both the partners, both the flower and both the fly, will get the benefit. So what does this picture indicates? This picture indicates that the honey will get its sorry, the fly will get its food from the flower, and the flower will stick its pollens on the surface, on the body of the fly, and whenever the fly will go somewhere else, it will spread the pollens of the flower, and this will help in the pollination and the production of this flower, right? So this is the mutualism. Next we do have commensalism. Commensalism, it is the type of relationship where host is neither harmed nor benefited, but the organism. Okay, so commensalism is the type in which one pair of the partner gets benefit while the other doesn't get any. And the third one is parasitism. Relationship, it is the type of relationship where parasite gets benefit and it return it harms the host. Parasitism is the relationship in which one of the partner gets the benefit while the other gets harmed. For example, head lice. Again, and the lice get the benefit, it gets the food, it gets the blood, it gets the shelter, nourishment from the human body, from the host. But what does the host get? Host gets itching, dandruff, and dryness, dry scalp, sebum, and all that, right? So there are three different types of relationships. If you look at the picture, first one is mutualism, both get the plus plus. Commensalism, one get the plus, and in parasitism, one gets the plus, while the other gets minus. So this was the short video on the introduction of parasite. Please do let me know if you need some more slides on the introduction. However, what I have decided, I will come with one by one moving plan of the book parasitology. We'll study different parasites one by one. We'll study protozoa and then helminths. So stay tuned, and goodbye for this time, and we'll see you guys in the next video.